Welcome back to Cactus Wrestling. Today we are going to rank the best Iowa wrestlers under Coach Tom Brands in this little tier list. As you can see, we have 1 through 10, and then a little box for a couple of honorable mentions. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future Cactus videos. So, one of the mics, why don't you take it away with our first honorable mention?
The first honorable mention is actually a guy that probably would, if this was just top 10 Iowa wrestlers ever, he'd definitely be in contention for that. But considering Tom Brands only coached him for 2 seasons, granted, he won a national title both of those seasons. He almost had 100 wins and had an 85% win percentage. Mark Perry, I think he's honorable mention purely because 2 of his 4 years, half of his college career was not coached under Brands. So that's why I think we just put him in the honorable mention category. Had Brands coached him for all 4 seasons and he produced what he did, he would 100% be in the top 10. But the caveat of it being only under Brands and, 2 titles, that's where I think he lands under honorable mention.
Yeah. I think next honorable mention we're going to have to mention is Austin DeSanto. I know this can be a tough one. He's a fan favorite. I love him. I'm super excited to see how his international career keeps going. Tough to watch him at the U.S. Open, faulty veto like that. But if you look at the stats, win percentage-wise, he's not crazy. He is a 3-time All-American, and each year he did get better. But again, he only wrestled 3 years out of the 4 under Iowa. So it's something to keep in mind there. Never made the national finals. Granted, he was in a real tough bracket. You got guys like Dayton Fix and RBY in there mixing it up. And, even Nick Suriano 1 year. But again, Iowa's produced some real top talent under Brands, and he just misses the top the list.
I'll do the next one. Jacob Warner is a guy with 28 career losses. Granted, he is a 4-time All-American, which is pretty impressive. Iowa doesn't have necessarily a lot of those, but he was a guy that kind of picked it up at the NCAA tournament, but he had a lot of losses in his career, and I think that speaks it speaks a lot of words. So,
of all the guys we're considering, he had the lowest win percentage, and he had the most losses of any of them. So,
and I know a lot of Iowa fans have not been very happy with him this past season.
Going from 2nd to 5th, that's
a pretty tough fall sometimes.
Yeah. We got one last honorable mention on the list. 91 and 21 career. He finished 2nd, 4th, and 2nd. Has an 81% win percentage. Montel Marion, 2-time runner-up. Since he's a 3-time All-American, I think he just is a tier, like a slight tier below the top 10. Like, I feel like that's why he's a peripheral guy, honorable mention. But I don't think you could argue if you stacked him up against any of the people that we're putting in the top 10, I think that they have a slightly more impressive season. Of the 14 that we have listed, he has the 2nd most losses. So I think that's a big there's only 2 guys here that had over 20 losses, and Marion is one of them. So I think that's why he lands in honorable mention.
I think it just speaks to the depth of some of these Iowa guys, though. When you're a multiple-time national finalist and you're like, you're not even in our top 10.
That's true.
And this is just under the Brands era, too.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, just Brands era guys, 2006 to present.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the top 10 here, and we're going to be kind of debating this real time here. We don't necessarily have a pre-ranked order. We've kind of agreed upon these 10 as the top 10, but any names you guys want to throw out for that number 10 spot?
Kemmer. I would argue Kemmer is probably more towards the bottom of the 10, maybe 10, but he's 112 is his record. 100 wins, 12 losses.
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty solid win percentage there, nearly 90. And he is a 4-time All-American. He did make the finals once out of those 4 years. It was spanned over like a 6 or 7 year span, but and he battled a lot of injuries. But I just only making the finals once. I mean, granted, yeah, 4-time All-American, but I think that he's definitely closer to the 10 spot than higher up onto the list.
So I don't know, Jack, you might agree with me on this one. Brandon Sorensen, I have as my number 10. So again, 4-time All-American, fourth, second, third, fifth. So again, pretty similar with placings to Michael Kemmer.
Yeah.
More wins, 127 wins, but also more losses, 17 losses versus 12 losses.
Well, I mean, that's 17-5 difference.
Yeah, but I think,
Yeah.
The losses are always tough when you're an Iowa fan.
See, I kind of give Sorensen a little bit more credit because he has so many matches under his belt, whereas
That's true.
Kemmer
Yeah.
had a lot of injuries. I was actually
almost 150 matches compared to 112.
Yeah. I think the recency bias too. For me, I would say Kemmer, in my opinion, wrestling Carter Starachi and having close matches with him, that being the guy that beat him in the national finals. And as we saw, Carter is on a trajectory to go for his fourth, maybe even fifth national title. This isn't like he just lost to some guy. I think that the strength of his opponents played a huge factor to it. And even, with his serious injuries that he had as a senior, he still took fourth, and everyone expected him to still make the national finals. I think it just speaks to how tough that bracket was.
I think they expected him to win it because he beat Starachi every time prior to that.
Yeah, and again, I think that it shows, maybe he is.
Well,
you could argue.
I mean, I don't know. Rutherford's the one that beat Sorensen when he was in the finals, so it's kind of apples and oranges.
It's funny. I actually had a different name than both of you guys. I had Thomas Gilman as potential number 10 guy. He was only a 3-time All-American, fourth, second, and third. And he was a guy that always kind of fell short. Like everyone kind of expected it to be his year, and then it just never happened. His career record, granted, I guess a little bit higher win percentage than in Kemmerer with a win loss of 107-12, but only being a 3-timer. I don't know. I think that maybe knocks him down.
I think actually you make a good point because both Sorensen and Kemmerer are 4-timers, and Gilman. I mean, also with Gilman's success on the international scene lately, it probably is why we were thinking more of Gilman, thinking higher of Gilman than because if this is purely based on when they were just at NCAAs, then I think you're right that Gilman probably is getting that number 10 spot.
Yeah, I actually, Jack, you bring up a great point, the 3-time versus 4-time argument. And to Mike's point, with all that Thomas Gilman has accomplished on the international scene and a senior level success, it sometimes makes you forget that he was good in college, maybe not as good as we all thought he was or remembered him being.
Yeah, no, he never won the tournament, and he's gotten world medals.
And we might get some flack for saying this, but it didn't seem like he really took a step forward until he switched to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club post collegiate career. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Funny enough, though, he just teched at the Pan Am Championship in the finals. He just teched Darian Cruz, who, as some of you guys remember, beat him at NCAAs, kept him from being in the national championship.
Right.
And he just beat the dog out of him. I think it was like 12-2 in the first period.
Wow.
And it just shows that
lots of strides.
His best wrestling is still ahead of him, I think.
Right.
All right, so let's lock in Thomas Gilman as number 10.
Okay.
And drop down to number 9. I'm happy to kind of jump on board with either of the names that you guys put for 10.
I think Sorensen having almost 27 more wins over Kemmerer is definitely an edge. Yeah,
I agree with
also
that.
Sorensen, yeah, I mean,
it was never Sorensen's year, though.
It was never Sorensen's year, but I kind of he had significantly more matches. I think that Kemmerer would be the number 9 guy.
I could see putting Kemmerer at 9.
I agree with that. And then what are we doing? Sorensen as 8?
Um,
let's take a look back at the list. See.
Potentially. I mean,
You may have jumped the gun, Mike, with putting him as number
well,
10.
I'm not saying jump the gun. I'm saying because so Jay Borschel, he only won nationals once. He's only a 2-time All-American. I mean, granted, he's a national champion, but he only placed twice, and he had a year in between where he took third and then took first. He doesn't even he's just shy of 100 wins. I mean, he's got a solid win percentage, higher than most others. 98 and 10. But I think he's more towards the bottom of the list, despite being a national champ, because he only was able to get to the podium twice. I know he lost a year because of the Virginia Tech transfer that cost him 1 year of his eligibility. But the fact that you went from third in the country to you didn't place, and then you came back and won it, which is great. But I feel like that 1 year in between where you didn't get to the podium really knocks him down, and because he only made it to the podium twice. I mean, granted, it's 2 out of 3, but still, I think he's lower here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy I know all these names. I'm not as familiar with Jay Borschel as some of these other names. Maybe that's just because he really only had his time in the spotlight for a couple seasons. It's a good argument. I mean, we use that for Gilman because he was only a 3-timer. Jay Borschel's only a 2-timer, but the national champion kind of brings him up a peg. So I don't know. That's tough.
That's what I was going to say is, how much do you weigh a national title? You did touch on Jay Borschel losing the year of eligibility from the Virginia Tech transfer. That 2009 season that he didn't win or even place at NCAA's, he was third in the Big Ten. He was off. He had a solid season that year. I think he had like 29 wins, maybe 30 wins that year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to pull up actual numbers to look at it. But he just kind of melted down, I think, or he might have gotten injured. You never really remember the full story of some of these guys.
I'm pretty sure the year that he didn't place, he lost in the blood round.
Oof, always tough. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good. At least he's rounded 12, though. It's not like he wasn't.
No, I know, but
mix.
Still, I mean, you went from third to third to did not fit place. Like,
well, that's the same. That's the same thing that happened to Matt McDonough his senior year. He lost the blood round as well.
Yeah, no, I know. You had a 3-time All-American in Matt McDonough, and you're thinking, he's a lock for number 4, and then doesn't even do it.
I think when I think wrestling top guys, I think consistency is key.
Yeah.
I think that a national title is great and obviously the pinnacle of the sport, but as a coach, you're looking for 4 years of dominance. And what we're seeing is that maybe Jay Borschel didn't have that.
Yeah, no, he got pinned in the blood round.
Yeah, and by comparison, someone else on this list might be a better average for 4 years.
Actually, upon further consideration, I think we could bump Kemmerer up 1, and Borschel could slide into 9th despite his national title.
Whoa,
wow!
Really?
Oh, we're going backwards now. Okay,
I don't know about that because Borschel only had 10 career losses.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true. Well, Kemmerer had 12.
Yeah, that's true.
But Kemmerer hit 100 wins. Borschel is too shy.
I don't know. I think you got to give a. How are you going to put the guy?
How are you going to put a national champion in 9th?
Okay, maybe. All right. I originally pitched 8th.
I think he can do 8th. I think.
Okay, that's fine for 8th.
And then Sorensen. I mean.
Well,
really the only one that.
I feel like maybe I way overplayed my Sorensen hand.
That's what I was saying. I think you might have jumped the gun, Mike.
Well, the rest of these guys all won a title. Clark's a champ. St. John's a champ. Ramos is a champ. McDonough's a champ. Lee's a champ. Metcalf's a champ. Sorensen's the only one on this list that's not a champ.
Yeah, but, he was going to be our number 10, and he's come all this way, so...
Yeah, put him in.
I think 7th is as high as Sorensen can fly.
If you told me at the beginning of the day that Brandon Sorensen is number 7 on your top 10 list of Brands wrestlers, I probably wouldn't believe you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're almost arguing he should be higher than 7 when you came out with him at 10.
Yeah. I was like, Brandon Sorensen, honorable mention. Next topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Sorensen's probably 7th, and then these 6 guys that
We got
have
6
titles.
left.
The 6 guys that have titles would probably be the ones duking it out for the top 6.
Okay, so of the guys that have titles, excluding Jay Borschel because he is number 8, Tony Ramos is a 3-time All-American. Brent Metcalf is a 3-time All-American, with the caveat that he lost his year of eligibility with the Virginia Tech transfer, and he's a 2-time champion. So I don't think Brett Metcalf is number 6.
No,
my argument would be Tony Ramos.
It would be between Ramos, Clark, McDonough. No, not McDonough. McDonough won it twice. Ramos, Clark, and St. John would probably be the 3 I would be arguing.
I mean, what was Ramos's record? He was 120-14. That's the 3rd highest number of wins out of anyone on this list.
Yeah, and I mean, St. John is a 4-time All-American, but he's 106-17. You know, he's on closer to the bottom as far as losses are concerned. I mean, he did creep past 106. I think Ramos is. I mean, having 120 wins. I mean, does that really offset not, All-Americaning for 4 years compared to 3? I mean, but then you got St. John. He went 4-2-1 and then finished 5th. So,
granted, it wasn't one of the years he had Kyle Dake.
Yeah,
that's
tough to beat.
I think he took 2nd to Kyle Dake.
Yeah,
right?
no. Yeah, the year he took 2nd was to Dake, and then he won it, and then he took 5th as his final season.
So there's a Kyle Dake clause in there somewhere,
right?
Let me check the Kyle Dake addendum.
Realistically, I think that this next couple are between St. John and Ramos. I think Clark is ahead of those other 2.
I was going to make an argument against Clark. So he only has 98 wins and 15 losses. Like
he's not in the 100 club.
But he is a 3-time national finalist.
He is a 4-timer.
4-timer, but 3 times in the finals.
3-time finalist, 4-timer.
And we were rewarding consistency.
Like that's some consistency. If St. John's last season was 1st and his first season was 5th, I think I might be more on St. John train. But
I also like Corey Clark. I remember his, shoulder being like basically held on with, bubble gum and duct tape. Yeah. And he was like, you'll have to kill me to beat me, is what he did talk about his interview. And I was like, this is an Iowa man.
Yeah,
that's true. But Tony Ramos has he's like the epitomous Iowa mascot with that stare down. That's as Iowa as you can get.
Well, and the crazy thing is he's a 3-time All-American, but he has 120 wins. He's got more wins despite not being a 4-timer.
Yeah, what the heck happened there? And it's not like his placings were all super high. I mean, he's a 2-time national finalist. Never placed lower than 3rd.
Right.
I could see Derek St. John could have. I mean, you always say coulda, woulda, shoulda, but he probably could have been and would have been a 2-time national champion if it wasn't for Kyle Dake.
Yeah.
I guess we could say that against anyone who's in the finals, though. Who did Tony Ramos lose to?
Yeah.
So,
this is a tough one.
I don't know. My gut's saying Ramos just because the argument with consistency.
The only thing that Ramos has,
3-time All-American.
Yeah, you're not.
The only thing, I would say, the only things Ramos has is having 120 wins, and that he finished on a high note of 1st.
Yeah,
but he's not a 4-timer.
Not a 4-timer.
Right,
Tony Ramos.
He's the only one. He's the only one left.
Yeah, I guess.
And he's the only one.
3-timer left.
Yeah.
Well, Metcalf, but we kind of explained he lost a year of eligibility.
Yeah.
And being a 2-timer, I think that two-time champion.
Well, three-time finalist,
well,
yeah.
McDonough was also a three-timer, but I think he's a little too good for.
Well, he's got 2 titles.
Yeah, he's a three-time national finalist. It's a little different.
Three-time finalist with 2 titles. Like,
yeah. I could see Tony Ramos being the next guy up. I could see the argument for it.
I think it's between Ramos and St. John.
That's what I was saying. I think Clark is ahead of them.
And if that's the case,
I mean, it's really a toss-up.
I'm going to say Tony Ramos then, because it's third versus fourth, second, first, but then St. John has that All-American as a senior.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that fifth. Tony Ramos did.
I think Tony Ramos was not starting because of McDonough.
He's just too good.
Well, I was going to preface our top 5, but I think we kind of defaulted St. John as number 5 here. Is everyone in agreement with that?
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I think St. John is number 5, yeah.
So we're down to
top 4.
Final 4, Brent Metcalf, Corey Clark, Matt McDonough, and Spencer Lee.
Well, you see, now it gets interesting because you got multiple-time champions and multiple-time finalists. They're all a minimum of a 3-time All-American.
However, Corey Clark's not a multiple-time champion, and the other 3 are.
Yeah, so, I mean, how much weight do you put on that? Because, I mean, if you compare, I guess, McDonough directly to Clark, they're both 3-time finalists. I mean, one's a 4-time All-American, one is not. So, I mean, how much weight do you put on that one All-American year compared to the fact that it's second, first compared to second, first, and then 5th compared to didn't place?
Corey Clark also had he didn't have 100 wins, and he had double-digit losses, whereas Metcalf, Lee, and McDonough had single-digit losses.
And McDonough also had over 120 wins. Like, he had one of the highest amount of wins on this list.
Yeah, I think Corey Clark's probably an easy number 4.
Corey Clark probably is the number 4 guy here. Like,
I think he does edge out McDonough.
Because McDonough has McDonough's got the second.
No, I said Corey Clark is not as good. I agree.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I agree that he's above.
Yeah, McDonough has the second most amount of wins other than Sorensen on this list.
In agreement. So final 3, Brent Metcalf, Matt McDonough, Spencer Lee. Fun question. Who would win between Matt McDonough and Spencer Lee? Drop it in the comments down below.
Well,
who do you think would win that?
A healthy Spencer Lee?
What's a fun and interesting thing about both of them is their final seasons really underwhelmed. Like, you got first, second, first, didn't place, and then 3 firsts and a 6th. Like, not exactly how any of these you expected these Iowa guys' final seasons to go.
Well, so Matt McDonough, he lost in overtime to eventual NCAA champion Nashawn Garrett his senior year, and then he lost in the blood round in overtime as well. I don't know who that was to.
Right. I mean, right in the mix.
But I mean, he had the most wins out of these guys. Granted, Brett Metcalf had 108 wins in 3 seasons.
He lost the year of eligibility. Like, that's impressive, and he also has the least amount of losses.
And Spencer Lee had 98 wins in 6 seasons. He had less wins in double amount of seasons. Granted, that wasn't full seasons because he got injured in COVID and stuff. But
right. Wait,
I don't know. I think I would put Matt McDonough as number 3 here.
I could live with Matt McDonough as number 3. I think that's
reasonable, especially because of his final season.
I think the top 2 are pretty well established.
Like, I mean, how could you possibly put McDonough over Lee, a 3-time champ? Like, how?
Well, he lost to Anthony Robles.
He did
in the national champion match.
Yeah, well, I mean,
which is crazy because a lot of people were like, McDonough's at a disadvantage.
After the fact, when you're wrestling a guy that's missing an entire leg, the rest of his body is much larger. But, like, At the
Yeah,
still same
Robles.
time, Robles had to learn how to wrestle in a way that he could score. So he won a freaking national title that way. Like,
I think Robles is the perfect example of like people will never be happy
yeah,
because like it's like, oh, like it's not fair. He only has one leg. And it goes, did you hear yourself just say that?
yeah, right.
Um,
So let's duke it out here. I think there can be an argument for both Brent Metcalf and Spencer
Yeah.
Lee.
We got McDonough slotted into third. So yeah, Metcalf.
Who is the best Iowa wrestler under Brands?
Tony Cassiope.
Cassiope. To be determined.
One more year of eligibility. Let's see what happens.
Well, so I mean, if you erase Spencer Lee's most recent season where he took sixth, and you're comparing 3 seasons, you're only looking at 3 firsts, first, second, first. But then again, if you erase one of Spencer Lee's titles and you include his 6th place finish, then Metcalf is by far better. Like if you compare senior, junior, sophomore, compare like just those 3 years, it's Metcalf is clearly, he's got more wins, less losses, and those last 3 seasons are more impressive. But you can't just erase the fact that Spencer Lee is a 3-time champ. So, and he's the only 3-time champ that Iowa has had under Brands.
Yeah. One thing too at Metcalf is that, as you talked about, he did lose the year of eligibility. I really think that if he had that year, he would have beaten Dustin Schlatter from Minnesota. They were back and forth in high school, and he had beaten him several times as well, including one of the years in college. I don't like to live in the hypothetical, but I think we could say that if Brett Metcalf had that other year of eligibility, he probably would have finished better than 6th.
Right. Yeah, no, you're probably right. Like even if he didn't win the title, he probably would have been a top 5 finisher.
Considering he only had 3 career losses. I mean,
yeah, I don't think that freshman year he would have been like picking up triple that amount of losses.
Yeah.
Like,
and one of those losses, I talked about this off camera. As we know, Darren Caldwell beat him in the finals. We saw the shove heard round the world.
Yep.
What a lot of people forget is that they wrestled early in the season in the All-Star Classic, and Brett Metcalf teched him 19-3.
Yeah, that's not a great way to finish that season.
I mean, I think they wrestle 10 times. Metcalf wins 8 of them. He could have just as easily been a 3-time national finalist and 3-time national champion in 3 years. For whatever reason, no disrespect to Caldwell. Obviously, he's a great wrestler and great MMA fighter these days.
Yeah.
But it is a little interesting to say, like, what the heck happened between the first of the year and the last match of the year.
Right.
Could have just been a bad day. I mean, you only have one match. You only have one match in the finals.
Yeah, everyone gets a bad day now and then.
I don't know. This one's tough.
There's gonna be some hurt feelings with this one.
Before we were filming this, I was gonna say Metcalf is number 1. Just given, I mean, dude grinded for 3 seasons. You kind of give him credit, saying had he not lost a year, maybe he would have picked it up. But if we're saying by that logic, I mean, if Spencer Lee wasn't awarded an extra year for COVID and was just done, I think you might say that he's number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue more towards Spencer Lee because he's got the 3 titles. He's the only guy with 3 titles. Metcalf, as great as he is, he doesn't have the 3rd title. Like if Metcalf had 3 titles, like if he beat Caldwell in the finals there, I would probably be pushing more for Metcalf because Metcalf didn't have the 6th place finish out of nowhere.
Yeah. Also, Spencer Lee was a 2-time Hodge Trophy winner, and Metcalf was only a 1-time Hodge Trophy winner.
I mean, yeah, that is.
I think Spencer Lee, knowing he didn't need to wrestle back.
Well, yeah, in his interview, he's like, those 2 matches, they didn't matter to me. Like,
I mean, I'm not going to take away from anybody, but I think if Spencer Lee wanted to come back to take 3rd, he would have.
Oh, yeah. I think I agree. I think it would have been first, 3rd.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that he was like, hey, like the team scores doesn't matter at this point. My accolades don't matter because I was going for the fourth, and now I'm on my senior level career. It's not gonna help anybody. It's only gonna hinder my health.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, if I'm gonna go, hey, Brett Metcalf could have won if he didn't lose the year. Spencer Lee could have taken third if he wanted to. So I
And
think
that would
that
have given him 100 career wins.
and taken away 2 losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would lean more towards Spencer Lee as being the best under Brands.
How can you not?
Well, I'm sure we'll get some commenters that are that'll give their opinions. Drop it in the comments down below. Who do you think are the best Iowa wrestlers under Coach Tom Brands and Terry Brands? So just to recap: Spencer Lee number 1, number 2 is Brent Metcalf, Matt McDonough is number 3, Corey Clark number 4, number 5 is Derek St. John, 6 is Tony Ramos, 7 Brandon Sorensen, 8 Jay Borschel, number 9 is Michael Kemmerer, and number 10 is Thomas Gilman, with DeSanto, Warner, Marion, and Perry as honorable mention.
Thanks for watching. We are Cactus Wrestling, and we'll see you next time on our next video.